The Ottoman crescent rises. Spanish ships cross the Atlantic. The printing press never stops. The 16th century has begun. This was the century that changed everything. The century that built the bones of our modern world. Empires rose. Faiths clashed. Continents reached across oceans. And through fire and gunpowder, a new world was born. The 16th century. Part 1. Dawn of Empires. 1500 to 1520, 20 years that tilted history. The world in 1500, a new century had begun. The old order was crumbling. Humanity stood at a crossroads it could never step back from. From space, Earth looks peaceful in 1500. The continents are divided, the peoples are separate. But not for long. Europe, a patchwork of medieval kingdoms. Church spires and feudal castles. The Renaissance is whispering of change. The Ottoman Empire spreads across the map in deep green. Constantinople is now Istanbul. An Islamic superpower commands the world. China under the Ming Dynasty. The Great Wall, the Forbidden City, a sleeping giant turned away from the world. The Indian subcontinent is fracturing. The Delhi Sultanate is breaking apart. A dynasty called the Mughals is approaching its destiny. Africa in 1500 is neither dark nor unknown. The Songhai Empire commands vast trade routes. Gold and salt flow across the continent. The Americas, hidden from European eyes. The Aztec and Inca empires flourish in isolation. They have no idea what is coming. Portuguese caravels, Spanish ambitions, Ottoman armies. European kings hungry for power. These were the players of 1500. The Ottoman Colossus, the mightiest empire on earth. Spanning 3 continents, dominating the Mediterranean, answering to no one. Constantinople, now Istanbul, gleams at the heart of the Ottoman world. The Hagia Sophia wears new minarets. This city is the crossroads of civilization. Look at the Ottoman map in 1500, vast territories, 3 continents, the Mediterranean, theirs. No empire came close. Sultan Bayezid II, aging, cautious, holding his empire together. But a deadly succession struggle is already beginning. Ottoman galleys rule the Mediterranean. Christian shipping trembles at their approach. Naval supremacy, absolute. All roads of trade pass through Ottoman lands. The Silk Road, the spice routes, a staggering flow of wealth, Topkapi Palace, seat of a world empire. The Ottoman Sultan does not merely rule a country. He commands the known world. Ottoman artillery, massive bronze cannons. In 1500, no fortification on earth could stand against them. In Istanbul, Islamic scholarship flourishes. Mosques and madrasas fill the city, the intellectual heart of the Muslim world. But trouble is stirring inside the palace. Bayezid's sons are at war with each other, and the most dangerous son is Selim. Prince Selim, fierce, fearless, and utterly ruthless. While his brothers play politics, Selim is preparing for war. Portugal's Eastern Empire. A small kingdom on the edge of Europe had found a sea route to Asia and intended to own it. Trace Vasco da Gama's route on the map, around Africa. Across the Indian Ocean, all the way to India. Trade rewritten forever. Portuguese ships enter the Indian Ocean armed, aggressive, and uninvited. The ancient trade world of Asia will never be the same. The spice markets of Calicut. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, worth fortunes in Europe. Portugal has found the source. In 1510, Portugal seizes Goa on the Indian coast, a permanent base. A foothold in Asia, an empire begins. Albuquerque conquers Malacca in 1511. The strait is now Portuguese, the gateway to the Spice Islands, open. Portuguese trading posts dot the coasts of Africa and Asia, not a land empire. A maritime network, the world's first global power. Ships are loaded with spices. In Europe, a sack of pepper is worth more than a year's wages. This is why Portugal sailed. Portuguese cannons outrange anything in Asian waters. Local fleets stand no chance. This is what gunpowder does to power. Lisbon is transforming, gold and spices pour in. A small Atlantic kingdom has become one of the wealthiest states on earth. The cross and the sword travel together. Priests alongside soldiers. For Portugal, conquest and conversion are 2 halves of one mission. Spain's ambitions. Ferdinand and Isabella had unified their kingdom, funded Columbus, and now their heirs wanted something even bigger. The legacy of Ferdinand and Isabella gave Spain a unified nation and an Atlantic foothold. The foundation was laid. Now came the building. Spanish ships multiply. Atlantic crossings become routine. Gold flows east. The appetite for more land and more wealth never stops. Gold from the Caribbean, extracted through forced native labor on a brutal scale. Spain is growing rich. Others are paying the price. Hispaniola and Cuba, Spanish settlements spreading. A plantation economy taking root. And the indigenous population dying in catastrophic numbers. The conquistadors are preparing. Armored men on horses, wielding steel. A small force carrying destruction far beyond their numbers. Hernan Cortés, an ambitious, calculating captain with a bold plan. He is looking west, toward Mexico. The Aztec Empire doesn't know his name yet. Spanish ships point westward, small fleets. Enormous ambitions. Empires that have stood for centuries are about to fall. The Spanish Caribbean in 1519, a launch pad. Stepping stones to the mainland. The greatest act of conquest in history is loading its ships. The German Reformation spark. Inside the Catholic Church, a fire was about to be lit by a monk with a hammer and 95 complaints. Rome and the Vatican, dazzling with Renaissance wealth. Marble, gold, masterpieces. But beneath the splendor, corruption is eating the church alive. St. Peter's Basilica is under construction, the greatest building project of the age. It needs money. Enormous amounts of money. Indulgences, certificates sold by the church promising forgiveness of sins. Pay enough, and your soul is safe. German peasants scrape together coins to buy indulgences. Poor and devout, being told salvation has a price. The anger is quiet but deep. Johann Tetzel travels Germany like a salesman of salvation. His pitch is shameless. His profits flow to Rome. Martin Luther is a young Augustinian monk and theology professor in Wittenberg. He is troubled by what he sees. He is searching for answers. Luther studies scripture by candlelight. He reads and rereads Paul's letters. A devastating conclusion is forming. Wittenberg University, small, provincial, unremarkable. No one predicted the next revolution would begin here, but it will. Luther wrestles with doubt and conviction. Every theological certainty begins to crack. A new understanding is emerging, one the church will call heresy. Italy, wealthy, sophisticated, deeply divided. No unified government, no common army. A prize waiting for whoever is strong enough to take it. The French army invades Italy in 1494. The city-states crumble before them. The weakness of division is brutally exposed. Spain answers France. Ferdinand's armies march into Italy. The peninsula becomes the arena where two great powers settle their rivalry. Venice, wealthy, cunning, determined to survive. The Venetian Republic navigates between invading giants with breathtaking diplomatic skill. Florence under the Medici continues to produce breathtaking art even as war rages around it. Renaissance genius does not wait for peace. Pope Julius II, the warrior pope. He leads armies personally. For Julius, the church is a power to be wielded. Battles roll across Italy for decades, cities besieged, armies clashing. The destruction is immense, and Italy alone is losing. Leonardo da Vinci designs war machines for whoever will pay him. The greatest mind of the Renaissance turns its genius toward destruction. Italian civilians flee the war zones. Cities built over centuries are damaged in days. The human cost history books rarely show. The Renaissance peak, even amid the carnage of the Italian wars. The greatest artistic achievements in human history are being created. In 1508, Michelangelo begins the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Scaffolding erected. A divine commission given. A masterpiece begins. Brush by brush, Michelangelo covers the ceiling with figures of staggering power. 4 years of solitary labor. The world will not be the same. Leonardo works on the Mona Lisa. A smile that will puzzle the world for 5 centuries is taking shape. The printing press multiplies knowledge at unprecedented speed. Books spread across Europe, and with them, dangerous new ideas. Universities are growing. Students debate ideas unthinkable a century before. Something is shifting in the European mind. Universities are growing. Students debate ideas unthinkable a century before. Something is shifting in the European mind. Scientific instruments are crafted with growing precision. Astronomers observe more carefully. Ancient answers are beginning to crack. Machiavelli writes The Prince, a brutally honest analysis of how power actually works. Modern political thought is born in Florence. Erasmus produces a new Greek New Testament. A scholar, not a revolutionary, but his corrections will have revolutionary consequences. The Safavid rise. In Persia, a young warrior mystic is building a new empire on the foundation of Shia Islam. Persia, wedged between the Ottomans and the rising Mughals. An ancient land at the center of the world. A new dynasty is claiming it. Shah Ismail I, barely a teenager when he begins his conquest. Charismatic, brilliant, convinced of his divine mission. The Qizilbash, Safavid warriors in red headgear. Fanatically loyal, they believe Shah Ismail is a holy figure. They will die for him. Tabriz becomes the Safavid capital. Persian art and Islamic architecture combine. A civilization announces itself to the world. Shia Islam is declared the state religion of Persia. It sets Persia permanently apart from the Ottoman Empire and begins a rivalry lasting centuries. Persian artisans create extraordinary beauty. Carpets, miniatures. The Safavid Empire is a cultural as well as a military power. Two great Islamic empires face each other across the map, Ottoman and Safavid. Sunni and Shia. The rivalry will define the Middle East for 500 years. The birth of Mughal India. A displaced prince named Babur was dreaming of an empire. He had lost everything and was about to win something far greater. Babur, young, educated, relentlessly ambitious. A descendant of Tamerlane and Genghis Khan. He had lost his kingdom. He refused to stop. Follow Babur's path, from Fergana to Samarkand, from Samarkand to Kabul. Years of wandering, fighting, losing, and always looking toward India. From Kabul, Babur looks south toward the Indian subcontinent. The Delhi Sultanate is weak, the invitation is unmistakable. The invasion inevitable. The first battle of Panipat -1526. Babur's small force faces Ibrahim Lodi's vast army. What Babur has that Lodi does not: gunpowder artillery. Babur's cannons fire. Lodi's cavalry panics. In hours, the Delhi Sultanate is destroyed. India has a new ruler. Delhi falls to Babur. The Mughal dynasty is founded. A new empire will shape South Asia for 300 years. Babur sits down and writes. The Baburnama, his memoir, is one of the most remarkable documents of the century. A conqueror who also wrote poetry, the Mughal court begins to take shape. Persian, Central Asian, and Indian civilizations start to blend. An extraordinary synthesis begins. The Aztec zenith. At the height of their power, the Aztecs ruled the most sophisticated civilization in the Western Hemisphere, with no warning of what was coming. Tenochtitlan, an island city of 200,000 people, larger than London, larger than Paris, dazzling in scale and beauty. The great temple of Tenochtitlan rises at the city's heart. Massive, painted in vivid colors. The spiritual center of an empire. Emperor Moctezuma II at the apex of Aztec power. Tribute from 100 peoples. His word, absolute. The markets of Tenochtitlan. Jade, feathers, cacao, gold, goods from across Mesoamerica. A world of dazzling commercial complexity. Aztec warriors in eagle and jaguar regalia. The military elite. Fierce, proud, and completely unaware of what is still at sea. Tribute arrives in Tenochtitlan from across the empire. Gold and feathers and labor. The machinery of Aztec power in motion. The Aztec calendar stone, a monument to astronomical knowledge. This civilization tracks the cosmos and encodes its worldview in stone. The Chinampas, floating agricultural gardens on the lake. Engineering marvels feeding a city of 200,000. Aztec priests study the stars with careful attention. Unusual events are logged, interpreted, feared. They are watching for signs. Strange reports are coming in. Unusual sightings. Ancient prophecy speaks of change from the east. The priests are troubled, and right to be, the Inca Empire. Stretching 4,000 kilometers along the Andes. The largest empire in the Americas. One of the greatest civilizations ever built. Machu Picchu in the morning mist. A mountain citadel that seems to grow from the rock itself. The Inca built like gods. The Inca Empire stretches 2,500 miles along the Andes. At its peak, 12 million people under one supreme ruler. The Inca road system covers 25,000 miles of stone paths through impossible terrain. This is how an empire governs across mountains. Cusco, the navel of the world, temples covered in gold. The heart of an empire that calls itself the four quarters of the earth. Sepa Inca Huayna Capac, absolute ruler, divine figure, master of an empire never defeated. He has no idea it is already doomed. The Quipu knotted strings recording tax, census, and history across the empire. No writing, but astonishing sophistication. Inca agriculture on mountain terraces. Potatoes and maize fed millions at altitude. The engineering still astonishes today. Look closely at Inca stonework. Blocks fitted so precisely, no mortar is needed. Walls that have survived 5 centuries of earthquakes. The Temple of the Sun in Cusco, its walls once covered in sheets of gold. The sacred center of the Inca world. The Chasqui Inca relay runners carrying messages along the road network at remarkable speed. The empire breathes through them. Selim takes power. The Ottoman succession crisis is reaching its bloody conclusion. The most dangerous man in the empire is about to become its ruler. The Ottoman princes are at war with each other, brother against brother. Civil war threatening the greatest empire on earth. Selim defeats his brothers and eliminates them. Ruthlessly, completely, he secures the throne through blood. Only the strong survive. Sultan Selim I is crowned in 1512. The empire has a new master. The age of Ottoman expansion enters a violent new chapter. Selim's eyes turn east. The Safavid Shah, a Shia ruler he considers a heretic and a threat. War is not coming. It is already decided. The Ottoman army mobilizes hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Artillery stretching for miles. The greatest military machine in the world moves east. The Battle of Chaldiran, -1514, Ottoman cannon against Safavid cavalry. The Kizilbash charge with extraordinary bravery. They are destroyed. Shah Ismail is defeated. Wounded, humiliated, the Safavid expansion is stopped. The balance of Islamic power is permanently reset. But Selim does not stop. He turns south. The Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt, ancient, wealthy, and now visibly weak, is next. Syrian cities fall to the Ottoman advance. Damascus is taken. The Mamluks cannot organize a defense fast enough to matter. The Battle of March to Beek, -1516. The Mamluk army is annihilated by Ottoman artillery. Syria is gone. Egypt is now defenseless. In 1517, the Ottoman army enters Egypt. The Mamluk Sultanate, rulers of Egypt for 2.5 centuries, is erased. Selim stands in Cairo. In 8 years he has doubled the Ottoman Empire. No conqueror in the world has achieved this in this short a time. Selim claims the Caliphate, supreme spiritual leadership of Sunni Islam. The Ottoman Sultan is now the Caliph of Islam. Mecca and Medina now fall under Ottoman protection. The prestige this brings the dynasty is incalculable. It will last until the 20th century. Look at the Ottoman map after Selim. 3 continents, sacred cities in Ottoman hands. The greatest empire on earth just got dramatically larger. Selim I dies in 1528 years of conquest. His son inherits the empire. The son's name is Suleiman. History will call him the Magnificent. Magellan's dream. A Portuguese navigator in Spanish service had one plan. Sail west, all the way around the world, to reach the east. Ferdinand Magellan. Meticulous, determined, possessed of a vision larger than any voyage before him. He wants to sail around the entire world. Magellan presents his plan to King Charles of Spain. A globe is produced, the route is traced. 5 ships and 270 men are commissioned. 5 ships prepared. Provisions loaded for a voyage of unknown length. Crew assembled from across Europe. In August 1519, history sets sail. The fleet leaves Spain. The known world falls behind. What lies ahead is guesswork, old charts, and the courage of men who refuse to turn back. Magellan's fleet works south along South America. For months, he searches for a passage through. The coastline offers nothing but more coastline. Then a strait, narrow, storm-racked, bitterly cold. Magellan drives through it. On the other side, the Pacific, uncharted, vast, unknown. The Pacific stretches west without end. 99 days without sight of land. Men die of scurvy. But Magellan will not turn back. Luther's thunderbolt. On the 31st of October, 1517, a theology professor walked to a church door in Wittenberg and changed the world. October 31st, 1517, Wittenberg, Germany. An ordinary autumn day, a monk with a document and a hammer. Everything is about to change. The 95 Theses, a list of arguments against church abuses, written in precise Latin, not yet a revolution. But it will become one. The printing press does what no previous reformer had available. Within weeks, copies circulate across Germany. Within months, across all of Europe. Pope Leo X dismisses reports of a troublesome German monk, a minor theological dispute, not worth his attention. He is catastrophically wrong. Luther keeps writing. Each pamphlet bolder than the last. He attacks indulgences, papal authority, the entire system. The movement grows beyond anyone's control. German princes take notice. Some are moved by Luther's theology. Others see political opportunity, church lands to seize. The alliance forms. Ordinary Germans read Luther in their own language. The Bible accessible to people who cannot read Latin. This changes everything. The church demands Luther recant. Pressure applied. Excommunication threatened. Luther's response, write more, and more defiantly. Luther burns the papal bull of excommunication in public. The bridge is ash. A church unified for 1,000 years is about to split forever. 1520. A world in transition. In 20 years, the map of human civilization has been completely redrawn. Nothing has been left untouched. Suleiman becomes Sultan. Cortés lands in Mexico. Luther is excommunicated. Magellan sails the Pacific. In 1520, everything is happening at once. Tenochtitlan is peaceful. The markets are busy. The temples are full. They have no idea Spanish ships are already on the coast. Cortés steps ashore on the Mexican coast. 500 soldiers, 16 horses, a handful of cannons. Against an empire of millions, and yet they will win. Empires will fall. Not in centuries, not gradually, in years and months. The scale of what is coming is beyond imagination. New powers will rise. From the ruins of old orders, new civilizations, new faiths, new ways of understanding the world. The future is being born right now. To be continued in part 2. The conquests, the reformations, the revolutions, they are all still ahead. Ottoman expansion, Portuguese trade, Luther's theses, Babur's cannons, Magellan crossing the Pacific. 20 years that changed the world, that was part 1.